My daughter-in-law was at a conference, so I picked up my granddaughter from ballet. She showed me a beautiful doll a kind lady had given her. That night, while putting her to bed, I noticed the doll's eyes looked odd. When I opened them and saw what was inside, I completely freaked out. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. I've lived 63 years on this earth, and I thought I'd seen enough to recognize danger when it appeared. But that Tuesday afternoon in late September, danger came wrapped in pink satin and porcelain, wearing a painted smile that would haunt my dreams for weeks to come. The call from my daughter-in-law, Mackenzie, came at 2:30. Aisha, I'm so sorry to ask on such short notice, but could you possibly pick up Molly from ballet? This conference ran over, and I won't make it back to Greenfield in time. Of course, dear, I said, already reaching for my car keys. My 7-year-old granddaughter was the light of my life, and any excuse to spend time with her was a gift, even if it meant navigating the rush-hour traffic from my small farmhouse on the outskirts of town into the city center. Mackenzie's voice carried that practiced warmth she used so skillfully. You're a lifesaver. The studio closes at 4:30 sharp, and you know how Miss Carolyn gets if parents are late. I did know. Miss Carolyn's dance academy operated with military precision, something Mackenzie appreciated. My daughter-in-law valued perfection in all things, a trait that had served her well as executive director of the Greenfield Family Relief Fund. At 38, she'd built a reputation as the city's most dedicated philanthropist, her face regularly appearing in the local newspaper above headlines praising her charitable work. But I'd learned, in the 5 years since my son Eric married her, that Mackenzie's public persona and her private self were two very different things. The drive took 40 minutes. I arrived at the studio with 10 minutes to spare, parking my old pickup truck between two sleek SUVs that made my vehicle look like a relic from another era. Inside, the waiting area smelled of rosin and sweat, filled with mothers in yoga pants scrolling through their phones. When Molly emerged from the studio, her blonde curls escaping from her bun, her face lit up in a way that made my heart swell. But it was what she clutched in her arms that made me pause. Grandma Aisha! Look what I got! She held up an exquisite porcelain doll, nearly 2 feet tall, with an elaborate Victorian dress of deep burgundy velvet and cream lace. The craftsmanship was stunning, the kind of antique collector's piece that belonged in a glass case, not in a 7-year-old's hands. Goodness, sweetheart, where did that come from? A nice lady gave it to me, in the hallway, when I was coming out. She said I reminded her of someone special, and she wanted me to have it. Molly's eyes sparkled with innocent delight. Isn't she beautiful? I'm going to name her Rosalind. A cold finger traced down my spine. What did this lady look like? She had dark hair, kind of messy, and she looked really tired, but she had a nice smile. She said the doll would keep me safe. I scanned the waiting area, but saw only the usual collection of parents and nannies. Through the glass doors leading to the parking lot, I caught a glimpse of a woman in a faded green coat hurrying toward a battered sedan, her shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. Did you thank her? Yes, Grandma. I said thank you 3 times. I took Molly's hand, the doll tucked under my other arm, and led her to the truck. Something felt wrong about this gift, though I couldn't articulate why. Perhaps it was the woman's hurried departure, or the incongruity of such an expensive item being given to a stranger's child, or simply the instinct honed over 6 decades of living. During the drive back to Mackenzie and Eric's house in the suburbs, Molly chattered about her ballet combinations and her upcoming recital, the doll resting on her lap like a tiny, elegant passenger. I tried to focus on my granddaughter's voice, but my eyes kept returning to the doll's face in the rearview mirror. The eyes were unusual, large and glassy, with an unsettling intensity. They seemed to follow the movement of the road, and in the shifting afternoon light, I could have sworn I saw something behind them, a darkness that shouldn't exist in a child's toy. At Mackenzie's house, a pristine 2-story colonial with perfectly manicured lawns, I helped Molly with her homework while we waited for her parents to return. Eric worked as a financial analyst downtown and typically arrived home by 6:30. Mackenzie's schedule was less predictable, her charitable work often keeping her out until late evening. By 7, Eric called to say he was stuck in a client meeting. By 7:30, Mackenzie texted that the conference was running even later than expected. Molly and I made grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner, and I ran her a bath, the doll watching us from its perch on the bathroom counter. "Can Rosalind sleep with me tonight?" Molly asked as I tucked her into bed, her room a showcase of coordinated pastels and expensive furnishings that felt more like a magazine spread than a child's sanctuary. "Of course, sweetheart." I arranged the doll beside her on the pillow, and that's when I noticed it again. That strange quality to the eyes. In the soft glow of Molly's nightlight, they seemed almost translucent. I leaned closer, my heart beginning to pound. The eyes weren't painted porcelain, as I'd assumed. They were glass, thick glass, and behind them was a hollow space, a chamber within the doll's head. And inside that chamber, I could see something. My hands trembled as I reached for the doll. "Molly, sweetie, let Grandma look at Rosalind for just a moment." "Why? What's wrong?" "Nothing, darling. I just want to see how she's made." I carried the doll to Molly's desk, turning on the bright lamp. Under the harsh light, there was no mistaking it. Behind those glass eyes was a small cavity, and nestled inside were rolled papers, thin and tightly compressed. "Grandma, you're scaring me." I forced a smile. "I'm not scared, honey. Just curious. This is a very special doll." With careful fingers, I felt along the back of the doll's head, finding a small seam in the porcelain. It took several minutes of gentle manipulation before I discovered the mechanism. A tiny latch disguised as a decorative bow. When I pressed it, the back of the head opened with a soft click. I reached inside and pulled out the papers, unrolling them with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. They were photographs. Dozens of them, printed on thin paper and rolled tight. The images showed documents, bank statements, ledgers filled with numbers, emails with names I recognized from the newspapers and local television. And at the center of nearly every document was a logo I knew well, the stylized tree and hand symbol of the Greenfield Family Relief Fund. My breath caught in my throat as I read the highlighted sections, the circled figures, the margin notes written in desperate, hurried handwriting. Words jumped out at me: diverted, falsified, denied treatment, payoff. And there, in a photograph of what appeared to be a personal email, I saw my daughter-in-law's name, Mackenzie Montgomery. The emails detailed transactions, money promised and money withheld, families requesting help and being turned away while funds were redirected to unnamed accounts. There were photographs of Mackenzie meeting with people in parking lots, in dim restaurants, exchanges that looked nothing like legitimate charity work. But the worst were the photographs of a little girl, no older than Molly, lying in a hospital bed, her small bald head and hollow eyes telling the story of serious illness. Clipped to one photo was a handwritten note: "Lily Terry, age 6, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Treatment cost, $340,000. Fund has $2.3 million available. Request denied by VM reason given. Insufficient documentation." Beneath that, in the same desperate handwriting, "She promised help if I did what she asked. I did everything. Everything. Now she won't answer my calls." "Grandma?" Molly's voice was small and frightened. "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" I hadn't realized tears were streaming down my face. I quickly rolled the papers and slipped them into my cardigan pocket, then returned to Molly's bedside, smoothing her hair with what I hoped was a reassuring touch. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. I just remembered something sad, but it has nothing to do with you. Try to sleep now." "But what about Rosalind?" I looked at the hollow doll, its head still open, its secret exposed. "I think Rosalind needs some repairs. I'll take her home with me tonight and bring her back good as new. I promise." Molly's face fell, but she was too tired to protest much. I kissed her forehead, turned off the lamp, and made my way downstairs just as I heard the garage door opening. Mackenzie was home. She swept into the kitchen, immaculate as always despite her long day, her dark hair perfectly styled, her designer suit unwrinkled. "Mom, Aisha, I didn't expect you to still be here. Thank you so much for staying with Molly." "It was my pleasure." I kept my voice steady, my hand unconsciously moving to the pocket where the photographs lay hidden. She's already asleep. Mackenzie set her briefcase on the counter, her eyes sharp and assessing. Did everything go well? No problems? None at all. I picked up my purse, eager to leave before my face betrayed what I knew. Though someone gave Molly a doll at the studio. A stranger. I thought you should know. Something flickered across Mackenzie's face, there and gone in an instant. Fear? Anger? A doll? What kind of doll? An antique porcelain one. Quite valuable, I'd think. I took it home with me because it seems too delicate for a child to play with. I'll have it checked out. Mackenzie's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That was thoughtful of you. Though I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. Probably just someone cleaning out their attic wanting to pass on a family heirloom. Perhaps. I moved toward the door, then paused. The woman who gave it to Molly. Did she happen to contact you? Dark hair? Tired looking? I wondered if she might have been one of the families from the fund, wanting to express gratitude. The room's temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mackenzie's smile remained fixed, but her eyes turned to ice. I work with dozens of families, Mom Aisha. I couldn't possibly keep track of everyone. Why do you ask? Just curious. It seemed like an expensive gift for a stranger to give. Well, we appreciate people's kindness, whatever form it takes. Mackenzie walked me to the door, her hand on my elbow, guiding me out with gentle firmness. Drive safely. The roads are dark out by your farm. As I drove home through the October night, the doll beside me and the photographs burning a hole in my pocket, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just stepped into something far more dangerous than a simple case of charity fraud. Somewhere in this city, a woman named Terry was desperate enough to hide evidence inside a child's doll and give it to my granddaughter. Somewhere, a little girl named Lily was dying, while a fund with millions sat untouched. And somewhere behind Mackenzie's perfect facade lay secrets dark enough to make a stranger risk everything to expose them. By the time I pulled into my farmhouse driveway, my hands had stopped shaking and a cold, clear resolve had settled in my chest. I'd spent 63 years being kind, polite, and sensible. I'd raised 2 sons, buried a husband, and kept a farm running through droughts and economic downturns. I'd learned that the appearance of fragility could be a woman's greatest weapon, and that patience was often more powerful than force. Whatever Mackenzie had done, whatever web she'd woven, I was going to unravel it thread by thread. But I would need to be careful, methodical, and above all, I would need to find the woman who'd given my granddaughter that doll, because something told me that by morning, Mackenzie would be looking for her too, and the race to find the truth had already begun. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table under the yellow glow of the overhead light, spreading the photographs across the worn wood surface like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that revealed a picture I wished I'd never seen. By 3 in the morning, I'd organized them into categories: financial records, email correspondences, meeting photographs, and most damning of all, the medical documents for Lily Terry. The child's case file showed a family that had followed every procedure, submitted every form, met every requirement for emergency funding from the Greenfield Family Relief Fund. They'd been approved by the screening committee, endorsed by 2 board members, and then personally denied by the executive director, Mackenzie. The reason given was bureaucratic nonsense about incomplete verification of financial hardship, but the family's tax returns and bank statements were right there in the file, showing a household income barely above the poverty line and medical debt already exceeding $200,000. What made it worse were the photographs of Mackenzie meeting with people I recognized. City Councilman Robert Thorne, whose wife sat on the fund's board, developer James Hartwick, who'd recently donated $50,000 to the charity, and several other faces I'd seen at the fund's annual galas. The meetings appeared casual, coffee shops and restaurant patios, but the body language told a different story. Money changed hands in at least 3 photographs, envelope to envelope, brief and businesslike. I found my old laptop and began searching for information about Lily Terry. The local news had covered her case 6 months ago. 6-year-old battles rare leukemia, community rallies. There was a photograph of a beautiful little girl with huge brown eyes and a bright smile, standing with her mother, Rosa Terry, outside Greenfield General Hospital. Rosa Terry worked 2 jobs, as a night nurse at a care facility and weekend shifts at a grocery store. Her husband had died in a construction accident 3 years prior. Lily was her only child. The article mentioned that the family had applied to several charitable organizations for help with treatment costs. The Greenfield Family Relief Fund wasn't mentioned by name, but I knew from the documents that they'd applied there first. As dawn broke over the fields, I made a decision. I needed to find Rosa Terry, and I needed to understand exactly what Mackenzie had asked her to do in exchange for the help that never came. But first, I had to be smart about this. I couldn't let Mackenzie know I was investigating. That meant maintaining my role as the simple country grandmother, the woman who baked pies and tended chickens and posed no threat to anyone. I made coffee and called my younger son, Denzel, who lived in Portland. Eric, Molly's father, would be too close to Mackenzie, too likely to defend his wife or inadvertently reveal that I was asking questions. But Denzel and I had always been close, and he worked as an investigative journalist. If anyone could help me understand what I was looking at, it was him. "Mom? It's 6 in the morning there. Are you okay?" His voice was fuzzy with sleep. "I'm fine, honey. I just need some advice about something sensitive. Do you have a few minutes?" 20 minutes later, after I'd described what I'd found without mentioning names, Denzel's voice had sharpened with professional interest. "Mom, this sounds like fraud, possibly embezzlement. If this charity director is diverting funds and exchanging access for favors, that's criminal. You need to go to the police." "I can't. Not yet." "Why not?" I hesitated. "Because the charity director is Eric's wife." The silence on the other end stretched long enough that I checked to see if the call had dropped. "Denzel? I'm here. I'm just processing." He exhaled slowly. "Mom, this is serious. If Mackenzie is doing what you think, Eric could be implicated. He does her accounting work, doesn't he?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't thought of that. Eric had mentioned helping Mackenzie with financial reports, using his expertise to streamline the fund's operations. Had he known what she was doing? Was my son part of this? "I don't know what Eric knows," I said quietly. "That's why I need to be careful. I need to find this Rosa Terry woman and hear her story first. Then I'll know what I'm really dealing with. Mom, promise me you'll be careful. If Mackenzie is as calculating as you say, she's not going to take kindly to someone exposing her." After we hung up, I searched online for Rosa Terry's contact information, but found nothing current. The news article from 6 months ago mentioned she worked at Silver Meadows Care Facility, but when I called there at 8, claiming to be an old friend trying to reconnect, I was told Rosa no longer worked there. "She left about 2 months ago," the receptionist said. "Didn't give much notice, just said she had to focus on family matters. Poor thing looked exhausted. 2 months ago." Around the time Mackenzie would have realized Rosa wasn't going to quietly accept being denied help for her daughter. I tried the grocery store next, driving into town with the doll carefully wrapped in a blanket in the passenger seat. The manager at Sam's Grocery remembered Rosa but said she'd stopped showing up for shifts in late August. We had to let her go. I felt terrible about it, honestly. She was a good worker, but we can't hold positions when people just disappear. Disappeared. The word sent chills through me. I sat in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel, trying to think. Where would a desperate mother go when the system failed her? Who would she turn to when the person who promised help betrayed her instead? My phone rang. Mackenzie. "Mom, Aisha. I hope I'm not bothering you, but I wanted to check in about that doll you mentioned last night. I've been thinking about it, and I'm a bit concerned about someone giving Molly gifts. Do you still have it? I'd like to see it. Perhaps find out where it came from." Her voice was light, conversational, but I heard the steel underneath. "It's here at the house," I said, "though I'm afraid Molly will be disappointed if we don't return it. She's already named it. Children are resilient. Better safe than sorry, don't you think?" A pause. "I could stop by this afternoon and pick it up. I'm actually going to be in your area around 2, meeting with a potential donor who lives near the state park. She was coming here, to my home, looking for the doll and whatever secrets it held." "That would be fine," I said, keeping my voice warm and unconcerned. "I'll put on coffee." The moment I hung up, I photographed every single document from the doll's hiding place. using my phone's camera and making sure to capture every detail. Then I uploaded them to an email account I created under a false name, sent copies to that account and to Denzel, and hid the physical photographs in a place Mackenzie would never think to look. Inside the false bottom of my husband's old toolbox in the barn, beneath rusted wrenches and 50 years of accumulated hardware. I put the doll on my kitchen table, looking innocent and harmless with its head closed, its secret chamber empty. At 1:30, a car I didn't recognize pulled into my driveway. Not Mackenzie's sleek sedan, but a beat-up blue Honda that had seen better days. My heart began to race as I watched through the window. A woman climbed out, thin and worn, with dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Even from a distance, I could see the exhaustion Denzel had mentioned, the way her shoulders curved inward as if protecting herself from invisible blows. Rosa Terry had come to me. I opened the door before she could knock, and we stood there staring at each other, two women connected by a porcelain doll in a web of lies. "You're Aisha Montgomery," she said. Her voice was hoarse, as if she'd spent too many hours crying or screaming or both. "Molly's grandmother." "I am. And you're Rosa Terry." Her eyes filled with tears. "Did you find them? The photographs?" "I found them. Come inside, quickly. Mackenzie is coming here in half an hour." The color drained from her face. "She knows. She suspects? Come on." Inside, Rosa collapsed into a chair at my kitchen table, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the coffee I poured for her. Up close, she looked even worse than in the parking lot at the dance studio. Hollow cheeks, dark circles under her eyes, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from sustained terror. "Why did you give the doll to Molly?" I asked gently. "Because I'm out of options." She wrapped her hands around the mug as if trying to draw warmth from it. "I've been trying to expose Mackenzie for 2 months. I went to the police, but she has friends there. I went to the newspapers, but she's too well connected. I tried to contact board members of the fund, but they all worship her. Every door I knocked on closed in my face. So you turned to me. You're her mother-in-law. You have access to her house, her family. I thought if I could get the evidence to someone close to her, someone who might actually be listened to." She trailed off, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know how crazy it sounds, hiding evidence in a doll and giving it to a child. But I'm desperate, Mrs. Montgomery. My daughter is dying. Tell me everything," I said. "Start from the beginning." The story she told made my blood run cold. 6 months ago, Rosa had applied to the Greenfield Family Relief Fund after exhausting every other option. Lily's leukemia required a specialized treatment protocol available only at a research hospital in Boston, costing $340,000 that insurance wouldn't cover. The fund's website promised help for families facing catastrophic medical expenses, and Rosa's case seemed perfect for their mission. Mackenzie had personally contacted her, inviting her to the fund's offices for a meeting. She'd been warm, sympathetic, promising that help was coming. Then came the conditions. She said the fund had certain administrative costs that weren't covered by donations, Rosa said, her voice barely above a whisper. She said if I wanted to move to the top of the approval list, I needed to help her with some special projects. Just small things at first. Delivering envelopes to people. Picking up packages from office buildings. She made it sound so normal, like I was just helping with errands. But they weren't errands. No. I realized pretty quickly that I was being used as a courier for payoffs. Cash in envelopes, documents that shouldn't leave certain buildings, messages between Mackenzie and people who clearly didn't want their communications traced. I tried to stop, but she said if I didn't continue, Lily's application would be denied. "So you kept going?" Rosa nodded miserably. "For 3 months, I did whatever she asked. I hated myself every day, but Lily was getting sicker and Mackenzie kept promising the approval was coming. Then one day, she just stopped answering my calls. The fund sent me an official denial letter citing incomplete paperwork, even though I'd submitted everything they requested 3 times. When I confronted Mackenzie, she told me I had no proof of our arrangement, and if I tried to make trouble, she'd make sure I was charged as an accomplice in fraud. She has something on you. Photographs of me making the deliveries, taken from surveillance cameras. My fingerprints on documents. She set me up perfectly. If I expose her, I expose myself and lose any chance of helping Lily. But if I stay silent, my daughter dies. I looked at this broken woman, this mother who'd been backed into an impossible corner by someone who claimed to help people like her, and I felt a rage so pure and cold it steadied my hands and cleared my mind. How did you get these photographs? I have a friend who works IT for the city. He owed me a favor. I told him I needed access to the fund's servers, and he created a backdoor for me. I downloaded everything I could before Mackenzie changed the passwords. But having the evidence and getting someone to believe it are two different things. The sound of a car on the gravel driveway made us both jump. Through the window, I saw Mackenzie's silver sedan pulling up. "The barn," I hissed. "Go to the barn and hide in the loft. Don't make a sound, no matter what you hear. And Rosa? I'm going to fix this. I promise you." She fled through the back door as Mackenzie's footsteps sounded on the front porch. I smoothed my cardigan, put a smile on my face, and opened the door to greet my daughter-in-law. "Mackenzie, right on time. Come in, dear. The coffee's fresh." She swept inside, her eyes immediately landing on the doll sitting on my kitchen table. Something flickered across her face. Triumph, maybe, or relief. There it is. Such a strange gift for a stranger to give. Isn't it? I've been puzzling over it all night. I poured her coffee, watching her from the corner of my eye as she moved toward the doll. Molly was quite taken with it, but you're right to be cautious. One can't be too careful these days. Mackenzie picked up the doll, turning it over in her hands, her fingers finding the latch on the back of the head with practiced ease. She opened it, looked inside, and her face went very still. "Is something wrong, dear?" I asked innocently. She closed the doll's head with a click, her smile returning but not reaching her eyes. "Not at all. Just admiring the craftsmanship. These antique dolls are fascinating, aren't they? So many little hiding spots and secret compartments. Collectors used to stash all sorts of things in them." "Did they? How interesting." I sat down across from her, cradling my own coffee mug. "Speaking of collectors, I've been meaning to ask about the fund's upcoming gala. I'd love to help with the planning if you need volunteers." We talked for 20 minutes about mundane things, charity events, and Molly's ballet recital and the weather turning cold. But beneath the pleasant conversation, we were circling each other like predators, each aware that the other knew more than they were saying. When Mackenzie finally left, taking the empty doll with her, I waited until her car disappeared down the road before running to the barn. Rosa emerged from the loft, pale and shaking. "She knows the evidence is gone," I said, "which means she'll be looking for you. You can't go home, Rosa. It's not safe." "I have nowhere else to go. And Lily, where is Lily now?" "With my sister in Millbrook. The hospital there is keeping her stable, but without the treatment." She couldn't finish the sentence. "I made a decision that would change everything. You'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow we start fighting back. But we need more than photographs. We need witnesses, paper trails, something that connects Mackenzie directly to the fraud in a way she can't deny or spin. Do you still have access to that server backdoor?" Rosa's eyes widened. "My friend shut it down after I got the documents. Mackenzie's IT security is too good now, but..." She hesitated. "There might be another way. Mackenzie keeps paper records of everything in a safe in her home office. She's paranoid about digital trails, but she thinks paper is safer because she can control it. If we could get into that safe, that's breaking and entering." "I know." Rosa met my eyes, and I saw something fierce burning through the exhaustion. "I know what I'm asking. But Mrs. Montgomery, my daughter has maybe 2 months left without treatment. I will do whatever it takes." I thought of Molly, sleeping peacefully in her pretty room, unaware that her mother was a predator hiding behind philanthropy. I thought of Eric, possibly implicated in his wife's crimes. I thought of all the other families like Rosa's, denied help so Mackenzie could line her pockets and trade favors with powerful men. "Then we'll get into that safe," I said. "But we'll do it smart. We'll do it careful. And we'll make absolutely sure that when we expose Mackenzie, she can't wiggle free." Rosa grabbed my hands, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank you." I squeezed back, trying to project a confidence I didn't entirely feel, because the truth was, I'd just committed myself to a course of action that could destroy my family, put me on the wrong side of the law, and potentially leave Molly without a mother or grandmother. But when I looked at Rosa's desperate face, I knew I'd made the only choice I could live with. The question was whether I'd live long enough to see it through. The plan came together over the next 48 hours, assembled piece by piece in the quiet sanctuary of my farmhouse, while Rosa slept in the guest room, and I plotted the kind of calculated infiltration I'd never imagined myself capable of. Mackenzie's schedule was predictable. Every Thursday evening, she attended the fund's board meeting at the Greenfield Country Club, a gathering that reliably lasted from 7 until 10. Eric would be home with Molly, which meant the house would be occupied, but Mackenzie's office would be empty. I needed a reason to be there, something that wouldn't raise suspicion. Wednesday afternoon, I called Eric. "Honey, I've been going through your father's old photo albums, and I found some wonderful pictures from when you and Denzel were little. I thought Molly might enjoy seeing them. Would it be all right if I brought them by tomorrow evening?" "That would be great, Mom. Mackenzie has her board meeting, so it'll just be me and Molly. We can look at them together." "Perfect. I'll bring dinner, too. No sense in you having to cook." The next step was more delicate. I needed to know the combination to Mackenzie's safe, and there was only one person who might have that information. I drove to Eric's office Thursday morning, catching him during his lunch break. We sat in his car in the parking garage, the fluorescent lights casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me," I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. "How much do you know about Mackenzie's work at the fund?" Eric's face clouded. "What do you mean?" "I mean the financial side of things. You help her with the accounting, don't you?" He shifted uncomfortably. "I've helped her organize some reports, reconcile some accounts. Nothing major." "Why? Have you ever noticed anything unusual? Money going places it shouldn't? Applications being denied without proper cause?" The silence stretched between us, heavy with things unsaid. When Eric finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "Mom, what's going on?" I made a decision then, a calculated risk that could either save my son or destroy our relationship forever. I pulled out my phone and showed him 3 of the photographs Rosa had hidden in the doll, the ones that showed Mackenzie's meetings with city officials and the doctored financial records. The color drained from his face. "Where did you get these?" "From a woman whose daughter is dying because Mackenzie denied her funding. A woman Mackenzie blackmailed into being her accomplice." I watched my son carefully. "Eric, I need to know. Did you know about any of this?" "No." His voice cracked. "I swear, Mom, I had no idea. She told me she needed help streamlining the accounting system, making things more efficient. I never looked at the individual cases, just the overall budgets and expenditures. But you have access to her office. You know her systems." He stared at the photographs, his hands trembling. "The safe. She keeps personal files in a safe in her office. I saw her open it once, about 6 months ago. She didn't know I was watching." He closed his eyes, reciting from memory. "The combination is Molly's birthday, 07132017. Eric, I don't want to know what you're planning, Mom." He handed back my phone, his face ashen. "I don't want to know any of it. But if Mackenzie has been doing what these pictures suggest, if she's been using the fund to line her own pockets while families suffer..." He swallowed hard. "Molly deserves better than a mother like that. We all do." That evening, I arrived at Eric and Mackenzie's house at 6:30, armed with photo albums and a casserole dish of chicken and rice. Molly threw herself into my arms, delighted by the surprise visit, and Eric greeted me with a hug that lasted a beat too long, his way of giving me permission to do what needed to be done. We ate dinner at the kitchen table, Molly chattering about school while Eric pushed food around his plate, his eyes never quite meeting mine. At 7:15, just after Mackenzie would have arrived at her meeting, I made my move. "Molly, sweetheart, I left my reading glasses in Mommy's office the other day. Would you run up and get them for Grandma?" "I'll get them," Eric said quickly, standing. "You stay with Molly, Mom." He was giving me cover, I realized, creating a reason for me to be upstairs, away from Molly, if anyone later questioned why I'd been in Mackenzie's office. But I shook my head. You two start looking at the photo albums. I'll just be a minute. I climbed the stairs, my heart pounding so loudly I was certain they could hear it downstairs. Mackenzie's office was at the end of the hall, a pristine space of white furniture and chrome accents that looked more like a showroom than a workspace. The safe was behind a large abstract painting on the wall, exactly where Rosa had said it would be. I lifted the painting carefully, revealing a digital keypad. 071322017. The lock clicked open with a soft beep that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet room. Inside were stacks of files, organized with the same meticulous precision Mackenzie applied to everything in her life. I pulled out my phone and began photographing, working as quickly as I could while my ears strained for any sound of someone coming up the stairs. The first file contained records of denied applications, dozens of them, families with legitimate needs who'd been turned away. Clipped to each denial was a separate sheet showing where their allocated funds had actually gone. Payments to shell companies, transfers to offshore accounts, checks made out to individuals whose names I recognized from Mackenzie's social circle. The second file was worse. It contained correspondence between Mackenzie and the people in Rosa's photographs, city officials, developers, business owners. The letters were carefully worded, never explicitly stating quid pro quo, but the implications were clear. Mackenzie had turned the Greenfield Family Relief Fund into her personal influence-peddling operation. The third file made my hands shake so badly I almost dropped my phone. It was a ledger, handwritten in Mackenzie's precise script, documenting payments received and favors granted. And there, halfway down the second page, was an entry that made my blood run cold. E. Montgomery, financial consulting, $15,000 quarterly. Access to property records and estate valuations. Eric's name. My son had been paid by the fund. I forced myself to breathe, to think clearly. Eric had said he didn't know about the fraud, and I believed him. But Mackenzie had been clever, creating a paper trail that would implicate him if her scheme ever came to light. She'd turned my son into an unwitting accomplice, insurance against anyone trying to expose her. I photographed everything, my phone's camera clicking softly in the silence. Then I found what I'd been hoping for. A file labeled Terry L. Inside was Lily's complete application, showing every requirement met, every document properly filed. Attached was a memo in Mackenzie's handwriting. Application approved by committee. Recommendation, full funding. Override, personal discretion. Applicant's mother can be useful for special projects. Delay approval pending cooperation. She'd held a dying child's treatment hostage to force Rosa into criminal activity. The evidence was right here, in Mackenzie's own words. I was so focused on photographing the Terry file that I didn't hear the footsteps on the stairs until they were almost at the door. My heart stopped. I shoved the files back into the safe, closed it, and repositioned the painting. But there was no time to leave the office. The door was already opening. Eric stood in the doorway, his face pale. Mackenzie just called. The meeting ended early. She's on her way home. The words hit me like a physical blow. We had maybe 15 minutes, probably less. Did you get what you needed? Eric asked. Yes, but Eric, there's something you need to know. Later. Right now you need to get out of here. He grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the stairs. Take Molly with you. Say you promised her ice cream. Just go. But, Mom, please. If Mackenzie finds you here, in her office, she'll know something's wrong. And if she knows... He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. If Mackenzie realized we were onto her, she'd destroy the evidence, disappear the records, and probably find a way to make Rosa and me disappear along with them. We rushed downstairs. I gathered Molly, who protested at leaving the photo albums behind, and hustled her out to my truck just as headlights appeared at the end of the street. Ice cream, Grandma? Really? Molly bounced in her seat as I started the engine, my hands slick with sweat on the steering wheel. Really, sweetheart. I pulled out of the driveway, passing Mackenzie's silver sedan as it turned in. Through my rearview mirror, I saw her car pause, saw her watching my truck disappear down the street. She knew. Maybe not what I'd done, but she knew something had happened. At the ice cream shop, I sat across from Molly while she devoured a chocolate sundae, and I tried to calm my racing heart. I'd gotten the evidence. The photographs on my phone showed everything. The fraud, the corruption, the deliberate denial of help to families who desperately needed it. But I'd also discovered that Mackenzie had been clever enough to create insurance, to make sure that if she went down, she'd take people with her, including Eric. My phone buzzed. A text from my son. "She's suspicious. Asking why you were here. I told her you forgot your glasses last week. She's checking her office now." Then another text, seconds later. "Mom, be careful. She's not acting normal. I think she knows." I deleted the texts and looked at Molly, so innocent and happy, unaware that her grandmother had just stolen evidence that could destroy her family, unaware that her mother was a criminal who'd exploited desperate families for profit and power. When I dropped Molly back home an hour later, Mackenzie answered the door. Her smile was perfect, her posture relaxed, but her eyes were chips of ice. "Mom, Aisha, thank you so much for taking Molly out. I hope she wasn't too much trouble." "Never trouble. She's an angel." I kissed Molly's forehead and handed her over, my skin crawling as Mackenzie's hand brushed mine. "Before you go," Mackenzie said, her voice light and casual, "I wanted to ask you something. Eric mentioned you were looking for your reading glasses in my office." "Yes, I thought I'd left them there last week." "That's odd. I don't remember you being in my office last week. In fact, I'm quite certain you weren't." The air between us crackled with unspoken accusations. Molly looked from her mother to me, sensing the tension but not understanding it. "My mistake then," I said, matching her pleasant tone. "I must have left them somewhere else. You know how forgetful we old folks can be." "Of course." Mackenzie's smile never wavered. "Though I've always thought you were remarkably sharp for your age, Mom Aisha. Hardly forgetful at all." It was a warning, carefully wrapped in a compliment. She was telling me she knew I'd been in her office, and she was watching me now. I drove home through the dark October night, my phone heavy in my pocket with its cargo of damning evidence. I'd gotten what I needed, but I'd also tipped my hand. Mackenzie knew someone was investigating her, and she'd start taking precautions. Rosa was waiting for me when I got home, pacing in my kitchen like a caged animal. "Did you get it? The evidence?" I showed her the photographs, watching her face crumple as she saw the file with her daughter's name, saw the proof of Mackenzie's calculated cruelty in black and white. "We have her," Rosa whispered. "We finally have her." "Not yet." I pulled up the photograph of the ledger, showing her Eric's name. "She's been building a network of people who can be blamed if this goes public. She's got paper trails leading to my son, probably to city officials, maybe to other innocent people she's manipulated. If we go public with this right now, she'll throw everyone else under the bus and walk away clean. So, what do we do?" I thought about Mackenzie's ice-cold eyes, her warning disguised as pleasantry. I thought about Eric's pale face and Molly's innocent laughter, and Lily Terry dying in a hospital bed. "We need more than evidence," I said. "We need her confession. We need her to admit what she's done in a way that can't be denied or explained away." How? A plan was forming in my mind, dangerous and desperate, but it was the only way I could see to protect everyone who needed protecting while still exposing Mackenzie's crimes. "We make her think she's won," I said. "We make her think she's cornered us, that we're desperate and scared and willing to negotiate. And when she comes to gloat, to threaten, to offer us a deal to stay quiet, we record everything," Rosa finished. "Exactly." Rosa's eyes widened. "But that means putting ourselves in danger. If she realizes what we're doing, then we'll need to be smarter than she is. And we'll need help." I pulled out my phone and called Denzel. "I need you to come home, honey. And I need you to bring your recording equipment. The professional grade stuff you use for investigative pieces." "Mom, what's happening?" "I'm about to corner a predator," I said. "And I need to make sure the whole world hears her confess." After I hung up, Rosa and I sat at my kitchen table, two women who'd been underestimated their entire lives, planning the downfall of someone who'd believed she was untouchable. Outside, the October wind rattled the windows and sent leaves skittering across the porch. In the darkness beyond my property line, I imagined Mackenzie in her perfect house, already planning her next move, confident that an old woman and a desperate mother posed no real threat. She was wrong, and by the time she realized it, it would be too late. Denzel arrived Friday afternoon, his rental car loaded with equipment cases that looked innocuous enough to pass for photography gear. He'd flown in from Portland on the first available flight, and the worry etched into his face made him look older than his 35 years. "Show me everything," he said, barely through the door before dropping his bags in my living room. I spread the photographs across the kitchen table while Rosa hovered nearby, nervously wringing her hands. Denzel studied each image with the methodical attention of a trained journalist, occasionally asking questions, taking notes, his expression growing darker with each passing minute. "This is bigger than charity fraud," he said finally. "Mom, Mackenzie's been running a pay-to-play scheme using a nonprofit as cover. These city officials, the developers, the business owners, they're all paying for access and favorable treatment. This is corruption at a municipal level." "Can we prove it?" Rosa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The documents help, but they're circumstantial without context. A good lawyer could argue these meetings were legitimate donor relations, that the money movements were proper fund management." He looked at me, his eyes serious. "You were right to want a confession. It's the only way to tie everything together in a way that can't be explained away." "So we set the trap," I said. "We set the trap," Denzel agreed. "But we need to be smart about it. Mackenzie can't know I'm involved, and she can't suspect recording equipment. Everything has to seem natural, spontaneous." Over the next 2 hours, we planned every detail. Denzel would hide recording devices throughout my farmhouse, small enough to be invisible, but powerful enough to capture clear audio. I would call Mackenzie and request a private meeting, something that would seem reasonable given the tension between us. "What reason will you give?" Rosa asked. I'd been thinking about this since the night before, turning it over in my mind until a solution presented itself. "I'll tell her I found something else in the doll. Something that concerns me, and I want to discuss it privately before deciding what to do." "She'll know it's a threat," Denzel warned. "That's the point. I want her to come here thinking she's going to intimidate me into silence, that she's going to offer me money or make threats or whatever she thinks will work on a naive old woman. She'll let her guard down because she thinks I'm no real threat. And if she doesn't?" Rosa's voice trembled. "What if she just denies everything or refuses to talk? Then I'll push her buttons. I'll mention the Terry file, the payments to Eric, the denied applications. I'll make her angry enough that she stops being careful." I met Rosa's frightened eyes. People like Mackenzie have spent so long believing they're untouchable that when someone finally challenges them, they can't help but gloat. They need you to know how clever they've been, how powerless you are. Denzel nodded slowly. "It's risky, but it could work. The key is making sure we have redundant recording. If one device fails or she finds it, we need backups." He spent the afternoon installing equipment. A device hidden in the base of a lamp on the side table, another in a decorative bowl on the bookshelf, a third taped under the kitchen table. He also gave me a small recorder disguised as a pen to keep in my pocket as a final failsafe. "Test phrase," he said, holding up his monitoring equipment. "Say something, Mom." "The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain," I recited, feeling absurd. Denzel checked his readings and nodded. "Perfect. Crystal clear on all devices. Now, when you call Mackenzie, put it on speaker. I want to hear exactly how you phrase this." My hands were steadier than I expected as I dialed Mackenzie's number. She answered on the third ring, her voice carrying that professional warmth that I now recognized as completely artificial. "Mom, Aisha, what a lovely surprise. How are you?" "I'm well, dear, though I was hoping we could talk. Privately. There's something I need to discuss with you, and I'd rather do it in person." A pause, barely perceptible. "Of course. Is everything all right? Is it about Eric?" "It's about the doll," I said carefully. "The one I took home. I've been examining it more closely, and I found something that concerns me. I think we should talk about it before anyone else needs to be involved." The silence stretched longer this time. When Mackenzie spoke again, the warmth had vanished, replaced by something cold and sharp. "I see. When would be convenient for you? This evening, if you're free? Around 7? Eric mentioned you have the night off from fun business. 7 would be perfect. I'll bring wine. That won't be necessary. This shouldn't take long. After I hung up, Denzel replayed the recording, checking sound quality. She knows, he said. You can hear it in her voice. She knows you found something, and she's coming to deal with it. Good, I said, with more confidence than I felt. Let her think she's walking into a negotiation. By the time she realizes what's really happening, it'll be too late. Rosa had been quiet during all of this, sitting at the table with her hands folded, her face pale. I should leave, she said suddenly. If Mackenzie sees me here, she'll know we're working together. She'll be on guard. You're right, I said. But don't go far. Denzel will text you when it's over, and then we'll need to move fast. As soon as we have the confession, we go to the authorities before Mackenzie has time to destroy evidence or disappear. Denzel drove Rosa to a motel on the highway, 15 miles away, where she'd wait for his signal. While he was gone, I cleaned the house, a nervous habit from years of hosting guests, though this particular guest was coming for anything but a social visit. By 6:30, everything was ready. The recording devices were active, Denzel was hidden in the guest room upstairs with his monitoring equipment, and I'd changed into a cardigan and comfortable pants. The kind of outfit that made me look exactly like what Mackenzie expected. A harmless elderly woman, out of her depth and easy to manipulate. Mackenzie arrived precisely at 7, driving her silver sedan up the long gravel driveway with her headlights cutting through the gathering dusk. I watched from the window as she sat in the car for a moment before getting out, checking something on her phone, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. When she finally approached the house, she'd transformed back into the polished philanthropist, her smile warm, her posture confident. But I noticed she'd come alone, without the briefcase she usually carried, without anything that might suggest this was a business meeting. She was expecting confrontation. "Mom, Aisha," she said as I opened the door. "Thank you for inviting me. I've been worried about our conversation the other night. I felt like there was tension between us. Come in, please." I led her to the living room, gesturing to the armchair near the lamp with its hidden recorder. "Can I get you some tea?" "No, thank you." She sat, crossing her legs, her movements controlled and graceful. "Why don't you tell me what this is really about?" I sat across from her, my hands folded in my lap, and decided to take the direct approach. I found photographs in the doll, Mackenzie. Photographs of documents from the Greenfield Family Relief Fund. Documents that show a pattern of denied applications and redirected funds. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "Did you? How interesting. And what do you think these photographs show?" "They show fraud. They show you using a charitable organization to enrich yourself and trade favors with city officials. They show you denying help to families who desperately need it." Mackenzie's smile never faltered. "That's quite an accusation. Based on what exactly? Photographs that anyone could have fabricated? Documents taken out of context?" She leaned forward slightly. "Mom Aisha, I'm disappointed. I thought you were smarter than this. Someone has clearly manipulated you, fed you false information to damage the fund's reputation. Someone like Rosa Terry?" The name hit like a physical blow. Mackenzie's composure cracked, just for an instant, before she recovered. "I don't know who that is." "Yes, you do. She's the mother of Lily Terry, the 6-year-old girl with leukemia who applied to your fund for help. The girl whose application you personally denied, despite being approved by your own committee. We deny applications all the time when families don't meet our criteria. She met every criterion. Her file shows that. What it also shows is that you made her a deal, become your courier for illegal activities, and you'd approve the funding. Then you betrayed her." Mackenzie stood, her movements sharp and controlled. "I think this conversation is over. I don't know what game you think you're playing, but making wild accusations against me is a mistake you'll regret. Sit down, Mackenzie." My voice was calm but firm. "We're not finished." She stared at me, and for the first time since I'd known her, I saw genuine uncertainty cross her face. She'd expected me to be intimidated, to back down when challenged. Instead, I was pushing back. She sat. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. You're going to tell me the truth. All of it. Why you targeted Rosa Terry. How long you've been running this scheme. Who else is involved? And in return, I'll consider keeping this quiet. At least for now. It was a lie, of course. I had no intention of keeping anything quiet, but I needed her to believe she could still control the situation, that she could talk her way out of this. Mackenzie studied me for a long moment, then did something unexpected. She laughed. You really think you've got me cornered, don't you? Poor, naive Aisha. You have no idea what you're dealing with. She pulled out her phone. Let me show you something. She swiped through her photos and turned the screen toward me. It showed a document, a financial ledger with Eric's name prominently featured. Your son has been taking money from the fund for 2 years. $15,000 quarterly, ostensibly for financial consulting, but with no real deliverables to show for it. If this comes out, Eric goes down with me. Is that what you want? My heart sank, but I kept my face neutral. Eric didn't know what he was involved in. You set him up. Can you prove that? Because I can prove he took the money. I can prove he had access to confidential financial information. I can prove he helped me restructure the fund's accounting in ways that made my activities possible. She leaned back, confident again. So, here's what's actually going to happen, Mom Aisha. You're going to give me every photograph you found in that doll. You're going to forget this conversation ever happened. And in return, I'll make sure Eric's involvement stays buried. And Rosa Terry? What about her daughter? Not my problem. She should have been more careful about who she agreed to work for. Mackenzie's voice was ice cold. You want to know the truth? Fine. Yes, I've been using the fund to build influence. Yes, I denied applications to families who could have been helped. Yes, I used Rosa Terry as a courier because desperate people are easy to manipulate. And yes, I made sure there were paper trails leading to other people so that if anyone ever tried to expose me, they'd bring down half the city's leadership with them. My blood ran cold as I listened to her confession, delivered with such casual cruelty. This was the real Mackenzie, stripped of her philanthropist mask. You're proud of it, I said quietly. I'm practical. Do you know how much power I've accumulated in 5 years? How many people owe me favors? How much money I've made? She stood again, straightening her jacket. And do you know why I've been so successful? Because people like you always underestimate people like me. You see the smile and the charity work and the perfect family, and you never look deeper. I'm looking now. Too late. Mackenzie moved toward the door. You have 24 hours to turn over all copies of those photographs. If you don't, I'll make sure Eric is charged as an accomplice in embezzlement. I'll make sure your granddaughter learns that her father is a criminal. I'll make sure your entire family is destroyed. She paused at the door, her hand on the knob. And Mom Aisha, if you're thinking about going to the police, remember that I have friends there. Friends who owe me favors. Friends who will make sure your accusations disappear and that you end up looking like a bitter old woman with a vendetta against her daughter-in-law. After she left, I sat in the silent house for a full minute before Denzel emerged from upstairs, his face flushed with excitement. We got it. Every word. Mom, she confessed to everything. I nodded, suddenly feeling every one of my 63 years. She thinks she's won. She thinks she's successfully threatened me into silence. But instead, she's just handed us everything we need to bring her down. Denzel was already connecting cables, downloading files. This is admission of fraud, embezzlement, blackmail, conspiracy. With the documents you photographed from her safe and this recording, she's finished. We need to move fast, I said. She gave me 24 hours, but once she starts thinking about this conversation, she'll realize she said too much. She'll start taking precautions. Denzel pulled out his phone. I'm calling my editor. He has connections with the state attorney general's office, people who aren't tied to local politics. We can bypass Mackenzie's friends in the Greenfield police. While Denzel made his calls, I walked to the window and looked out at the dark fields beyond my property. Mackenzie had made a fatal mistake. She'd underestimated what a mother and grandmother would do to protect their families. She'd assumed age meant weakness, that kindness meant foolishness. She was about to learn how wrong she'd been. My phone buzzed. A text from Eric. Mom, Mackenzie just got home. She's acting strange, agitated. She's making phone calls and packing papers into her car. I think she's planning something. What's going on? I texted back quickly. Get Molly and leave the house. Go to a hotel. Don't tell Mackenzie where. Do it now. Another text. Mom, you're scaring me. Trust me, please. Just get Molly somewhere safe. 20 minutes later, Eric texted that they were checked into a hotel across town. By then, Denzel had confirmed that a state investigator was reviewing the evidence and would be issuing warrants by morning. But morning felt very far away, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Mackenzie was planning something desperate. Denzel, I said, call Rosa. Tell her to go to the hospital where Lily is and not to leave. If Mackenzie is panicking, Rosa might be in danger. He made the call, his face growing grim. She's not answering. A cold knot of fear formed in my stomach. Try again. Still nothing. We need to find her, I said, already grabbing my coat. Now. As we rushed to the car, I couldn't help but think that I'd set this whole thing in motion, had pushed Mackenzie into a corner, and now someone else might pay the price for my actions. The trap had worked perfectly, but the most dangerous moment, I was learning, wasn't when you caught the predator. It was when the predator realized she'd been caught. The motel parking lot was nearly empty when we arrived, just a handful of cars scattered under flickering yellow lights that did little to push back the October darkness. Rosa's blue Honda sat in front of room 107, exactly where it should be. But something felt wrong. The curtains were drawn, no light visible through the gaps, and when Denzel knocked, there was no answer. Rosa, I called, my voice tight with fear. Rosa, it's Aisha. Open up. Nothing. Denzel tried the handle. Locked. He pressed his ear to the door, then looked at me with worry etched across his face. I'm going to get the manager. Stay here. But I couldn't just stand there. I moved to the window, cupping my hands against the glass to peer through a tiny gap in the curtains. The room beyond was dark, but I could make out shapes. The bed, a dresser, and on the floor near the bathroom, a figure lying motionless. Denzel! My scream brought him running back, the manager hustling behind him with a key card. The door swung open, and we rushed inside. Rosa lay crumpled on the floor, conscious but dazed, a purple bruise already forming on her temple. Her phone was smashed on the carpet nearby, its screen spiderwebbed with cracks. What happened? I knelt beside her, helping her sit up while Denzel called for an ambulance. Mackenzie, Rosa whispered, her voice hoarse. She found me. I don't know how, but she found me. Tears streamed down her face. She took the only copy I had left, the only physical evidence I personally still had, the original photographs from the doll. I'd hidden them in my car, but she knew exactly where to look. My blood ran cold. When? How long ago? Maybe 20 minutes. She had someone with her, a man. They forced their way in, demanded the photos. When I tried to fight back, he hit me. Rosa grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in with desperate strength. But that's not the worst part. She said Lily's hospital received an anonymous complaint about Rosa Terry being an unfit guardian. Child Protective Services is on their way to take Lily into state custody. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Mackenzie wasn't just covering her tracks. She was punishing Rosa in the most vicious way possible, using the system to separate a dying child from her mother. We need to get to that hospital, I said. Now. Denzel canceled the ambulance after Rosa insisted she was fine, just shaken, and we piled into his rental car. The drive to Millbrook took 35 minutes, every one of them feeling like an hour while Rosa called her sister frantically, getting no answer. She's probably in the pediatric oncology wing, Rosa said, her voice breaking. They don't allow phones in most of the unit. Denzel was already on his phone, speaking rapidly to someone. My editor's reaching out to the Attorney General's office. They're going to try to stop the Child Services intervention, but it takes time to get emergency orders, especially on a Friday night. We don't have time, Rosa said. If they take Lily before we can prove Mackenzie's behind this, it could take days or weeks to get her back. And Lily doesn't have days or weeks. The hospital parking lot was well lit, a modern facility that served 3 counties. We rushed through the main entrance, past a security guard who barely looked up from his magazine, and found the elevators to the 4th floor where pediatric oncology was located. The nurses' station was busy with shift change, multiple staff members clustered around computers and charts. A harried-looking nurse with kind eyes looked up as we approached. "I'm Rosa Terry," Rosa said breathlessly. "My daughter Lily is a patient here. Has anyone from Child Protective Services arrived?" The nurse's expression shifted to concern. "Yes, they're here now. They're with Lily and your sister in room 412. But I'm confused. They said you were unavailable, that you'd abandoned your daughter. That's clearly not true." "It's a lie," I said firmly. "A very calculated lie by someone trying to hurt this family. Is there a supervisor we can speak to?" Before the nurse could answer, a woman in a gray suit emerged from one of the patient rooms, followed by Rosa's sister Maria, who looked terrified. The woman in the suit had the officious bearing of a bureaucrat convinced of her own righteousness. "Are you Rosa Terry?" she asked, her voice clipped and professional. "I am, and I want to know who made a complaint about me. That information is confidential, but multiple allegations have been made suggesting you've neglected your daughter's medical care and may be involved in criminal activities that put her at risk." The woman consulted her tablet. "We're required to investigate, and given the severity of the allegations, we're implementing emergency protective custody." "That's absurd," Maria burst out. "Rosa has devoted every waking moment to Lily's care. She's sacrificed everything for her daughter. Then she should welcome this investigation." The woman's tone suggested the matter was already decided. "We may have to place the child in temporary state medical foster care while we verify that the home situation is safe." "You can't take her," Rosa said, her voice raw with desperation. "She's dying. She needs her family. This is cruel, and it's based on lies." "Miss Terry, I understand you're upset, but no, you don't understand." I stepped forward, using every ounce of authority I'd accumulated over 6 decades. "That complaint came from someone engaged in a criminal conspiracy to silence this woman. We have evidence, and state investigators will have warrants by morning. If you remove that child from her mother's care based on fraudulent allegations, you'll be complicit in a much larger crime." The woman's eyes narrowed. "And who are you?" "I'm Aisha Montgomery. And this is my son, Denzel Montgomery, an investigative journalist who's been documenting a fraud case involving the Greenfield Family Relief Fund. The person who made that complaint is the executive director of that fund, and she's trying to intimidate a witness. Those are serious accusations. Do you have proof?" Denzel pulled out his phone, pulling up audio files. "We have her confession, recorded tonight. Admission of fraud, embezzlement, blackmail, and conspiracy. She explicitly threatened Ms. Terry and her daughter." For the first time, uncertainty crossed the woman's face. "I'll need to consult with my supervisor." "Then consult," I said. "But don't you dare take that child from her mother until you do." The social worker retreated down the hall, phone pressed to her ear, while we stood in tense silence. Maria grabbed Rosa, holding her while she sobbed with relief and terror in equal measure. "Can I see her?" Rosa asked the nurse. "Please, I just need to see my daughter." The nurse looked at the retreating social worker, then at Rosa's devastated face, and made a decision. "Room 412. 5 minutes." We followed Rosa into the room, and my heart broke at the sight of little Lily Terry. She was so small in the hospital bed, her skin pale, dark circles under her eyes, but she smiled when she saw her mother. "Mama, you came back. The lady said you weren't coming." "Of course I came back, Mija." Rosa gathered her daughter carefully, mindful of the IV lines. "I will always come back. Always." I watched them, mother and daughter clinging to each other, and felt rage burn through me like cleansing fire. Mackenzie had done this. Mackenzie had put this family through hell, had held this child's life hostage, had tried to use the system itself as a weapon. But we'd gotten her confession. We had the evidence. And one way or another, she was going to pay. Denzel touched my arm, gesturing to the hallway. "Mom, we have a problem. Mackenzie's not at home. Eric just texted. She left an hour ago with suitcases and told him she had an emergency fund meeting out of state. He thinks she's running. The state investigators..." Won't have warrants until morning. If Mackenzie gets on a plane tonight, she could be gone before they can stop her. He showed me his phone, where he'd pulled up flight schedules. There's a flight to Miami leaving at midnight from the regional airport. From there, she could go anywhere. Countries without extradition treaties. I checked my watch. 10:15. If Mackenzie was planning to run, she'd already be at the airport, probably checking in under a false name, using connections and resources we didn't know about to disappear. We need to stop her, I said. How? We're not law enforcement. We can't arrest her. No, but we can delay her. We can confront her with enough witnesses that she can't just disappear. An idea was forming, risky and probably foolish, but it was all I had. How many people are in your network? Journalists, editors, people who could get to the airport quickly? Denzel's eyes widened. You want to create a scene, make it public enough that she can't just walk away. Exactly. If we corner her in a public place with cameras and witnesses, she'll have to answer questions. We can buy enough time for the authorities to act. He was already texting, his fingers flying over the screen. My editor can be there in 20 minutes. He'll bring a photographer, and I'll contact airport security, tip them off that there's a person of interest trying to flee. The social worker returned, her expression more subdued. My supervisor wants to meet with Ms. Terry and review your evidence before we proceed with any custody action. Given the circumstances, we're suspending the emergency order pending investigation. Rosa sagged with relief, but there wasn't time to celebrate. I squeezed her shoulder. Stay with Lily. We're going to finish this. Denzel and I raced back to the car, GPS already directing us to the small regional airport 30 minutes away. During the drive, Denzel briefed his editor, arranged for additional journalists to meet us, and contacted an attorney who'd been following the story. This is crazy, Mom, he said, but there was admiration in his voice. You know that, right? I've been called worse things by better people, I said. Now drive faster. The airport was quiet when we arrived, the kind of small facility that handled commuter flights and private charters. Denzel's editor, a sharp-eyed man named Tom Reeves, was waiting near the entrance with a photographer. She checked in 15 minutes ago, Tom said. Bought a ticket to Miami under her own name. Arrogant or desperate? Hard to say which. Both, I said. Where is she now? Security checkpoint. She's in line. We moved quickly through the terminal, staying in the public area while Denzel's credentials as a journalist helped us get close enough to see the security line. I could see Mackenzie ahead, sleek even in travel clothes, her carry-on bag expensive leather, her posture confident despite everything. She was going to walk away. After everything she'd done, all the families she'd hurt, she was going to escape. Not if I could help it. Montgomery! Mackenzie! My voice rang out across the terminal, loud enough to turn heads. Mackenzie Montgomery! She froze, then turned slowly. When she saw me, flanked by Denzel and journalists, cameras ready, her mask of composure finally cracked. What are you doing here? Her voice was low, dangerous. Stopping you. I walked toward her, aware of people watching, phones coming out to record. You can't run from this. We have your confession. We have the evidence. And by morning, the state attorney general will have warrants for your arrest. You have nothing. That recording is inadmissible. I was in your home under duress. Maybe, Denzel said, stepping forward. But we also have documents from your safe. Photographs of ledgers, denied applications, evidence of fraud spanning 2 years. And we have victims willing to testify. Rosa Terry for one. And once we start digging, how many others will we find? How many families did you exploit? Mackenzie's eyes darted around, calculating escape routes, but airport security was already approaching, alerted by the commotion. Ma'am, one of the guards said, we need you to step aside. There's been a report that you're attempting to flee a criminal investigation. This is harassment. Mackenzie's voice rose, drawing even more attention. I'm trying to board a legitimate flight for fund business. These people are making false accusations. Then you won't mind waiting while we verify that, the guard said calmly. Please come with us. As security escorted Mackenzie to a holding room, cameras capturing every moment, she turned back to look at me. The hatred in her eyes was pure and undiluted. but underneath it I saw something else. Fear. She'd finally realized that the simple country grandmother she'd dismissed as no threat had orchestrated her downfall. Tom Reeves was already on his phone, calling contacts at other news organizations. By morning, Mackenzie's face would be everywhere, her crimes exposed, her escape attempt documented. Even if the legal system failed, public opinion would destroy her. Denzel put his arm around my shoulders. "You did it, Mom. You actually did it." But I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted and sad, and worried about the wreckage left behind. Eric would have to live with knowing his wife was a criminal. Molly would grow up knowing her mother had hurt people. And there were still families like Rosa's, scarred by Mackenzie's greed. "We still need to help Lily," I said. "That's not finished." "One thing at a time," Denzel said gently. "Tonight, you stopped a predator. Tomorrow, we start rebuilding what she broke." As we walked out of the airport, I called Eric. "It's over," I told him. "Mackenzie's been stopped, but you and Molly need to come home. We have a lot to talk about." His voice was thick with emotion. "Is it true? Everything Mackenzie did?" "Yes. I'm sorry, honey. I'm so sorry." "Don't be. You did what had to be done. You protected people." A pause. "Molly wants to talk to you." My granddaughter's sleepy voice came on the line. "Grandma? Daddy says Mommy did bad things. Did she?" I closed my eyes, choosing my words carefully. "Your mommy made some very wrong choices, sweetheart. But you are loved, and you are safe, and tomorrow we'll all sit down together and figure things out. Can you be brave for me?" "I'm always brave. You taught me that." As I hung up, standing in the October night with the sound of planes overhead and my son beside me, I thought about courage and wisdom and the long, difficult road ahead. Mackenzie had believed that power came from manipulation, from holding leverage over people, from being willing to hurt others to get what she wanted. She'd been wrong. Real power came from knowing when to stand up, when to fight, and when to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. It came from being underestimated and using that to your advantage. It came from patience, preparation, and the unwavering belief that truth, eventually, would win. I was 63 years old, and I'd just taken down a sophisticated criminal operation with nothing but intelligence, determination, and a porcelain doll's secret. Mackenzie had made one fatal mistake. She'd forgotten that grandmothers don't just protect their own families, they protect everyone's children. And we never, ever give up. 3 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my farmhouse, rolling out pie dough while winter sunlight streamed through the windows. Outside, the fields lay dormant under a light dusting of snow, resting and gathering strength for spring. Inside, the house hummed with the kind of peaceful energy that comes after a storm has passed and the work of rebuilding has begun. The legal proceedings had moved with surprising speed once Mackenzie's arrest made headlines. The state attorney general's office, motivated by public outrage and airtight evidence, had built a case that left no room for Mackenzie's expensive lawyers to maneuver. The recording from my farmhouse, combined with the documents from her safe and testimony from Rosa and others, painted an undeniable picture of systematic fraud and corruption. Mackenzie had been denied bail after prosecutors argued she was a flight risk, a claim supported by her attempted escape. She now sat in county jail awaiting trial, her perfect facade stripped away to reveal the calculating criminal underneath. But the real work hadn't been in the courtroom. It had been in the quieter, more painful process of helping the people she'd hurt begin to heal. The Greenfield Family Relief Fund had been dissolved, its remaining assets placed in receivership. An independent audit revealed that Mackenzie had embezzled nearly $2 million over 2 years, money that should have helped families in crisis, but instead had funded her lifestyle and paid for political influence. The scandal had reached far beyond Mackenzie herself. City Councilman Robert Thorne had resigned after evidence showed he'd accepted bribes in exchange for favorable zoning decisions. 3 other officials faced charges. The developer James Hartwick had lost his business license. The web Mackenzie had woven was unraveling thread by thread, exposing corruption that had poisoned Greenfield's civic life for years. But amid the destruction, something unexpected had emerged. Accountability and hope. A coalition of community organizations had formed to create a new relief fund, this one with transparent oversight and independent auditing. They'd asked me to serve on the advisory board, not as an administrator, but as a voice for families who needed help. I'd agreed, with one condition. Rosa Terry would serve alongside me. Rosa, the brave, desperate mother who'd hidden evidence in a doll and set everything in motion. She'd been cleared of any wrongdoing once investigators understood how Mackenzie had manipulated and blackmailed her. The charges Mackenzie had threatened her with never materialized. Instead, Rosa had been recognized as a witness and victim, not an accomplice. And Lily had gotten her treatment. The new relief fund had made her case their first priority, fully funding the specialized leukemia treatment protocol she needed. She'd been in Boston for 6 weeks now, undergoing aggressive therapy at the research hospital. The prognosis was cautiously optimistic. The doctors used words like promising response and encouraging signs. Rosa called me every Sunday to share updates, her voice no longer hoarse with desperation, but warm with gratitude and hope. Last week, she'd told me that Lily's hair was starting to grow back, soft and dark as a duckling's down. She wants it to be long enough for ballet class by summer, Rosa had said, laughing through happy tears. Ballet class. The place where this had all begun, with a porcelain doll and a desperate gamble. The doll itself sat on my mantelpiece now, its secret cavity empty, its painted eyes watching over my living room like a silent guardian. Molly had given it back to me after learning the truth, saying it scared her now. But I kept it as a reminder that evil often hides behind beautiful facades, and that courage sometimes looks like an ordinary woman making an extraordinary choice. The sound of tires on gravel pulled me from my thoughts. Through the window, I saw Eric's car pulling into the driveway, Molly bouncing in the back seat. They'd become regular visitors to the farm over the past 3 months, spending weekends here while Eric tried to rebuild his life, and Molly tried to understand hers. The divorce proceedings were moving forward. Eric had filed the week after Mackenzie's arrest, once it became clear that his wife had deliberately implicated him in her schemes. His name had been cleared. Investigators determined he'd been an unwitting participant, manipulated like so many others. But the betrayal had cut deep. "Grandma!" Molly burst through the door, her cheeks pink from the cold. "We brought you something!" Eric followed, carrying a cardboard box carefully. "It's from the new funds office. They said you'd want to see these." Inside the box were letters, dozens of them, handwritten notes from families across the county thanking the fund for help they'd received. Medical bills paid, rent covered during job losses, emergency car repairs funded, food provided, small crises averted before they became catastrophic. I read through them one by one, my eyes misting. This was what Mackenzie's fund should have been all along. This was what she'd corrupted and perverted for her own gain. "There's something else," Eric said quietly, pulling out an envelope. "This came to the house yesterday. It's from Mackenzie." I took it, surprised. Mackenzie hadn't attempted to contact anyone since her arrest, her lawyers having advised complete silence. The letter was short, written in her precise handwriting on plain prison stationery. "Aisha, you won. I hope that brings you satisfaction. You've destroyed my life, my career, my marriage, and my reputation. Everything I built is gone because you couldn't mind your own business. I suppose you think you're a hero, the brave grandmother who exposed corruption and saved innocent families. But you didn't save anyone. You just satisfied your own sense of moral superiority. The fund would have continued helping people if you'd left well enough alone. Yes, I took some money. Yes, I made deals. But I also approved thousands of applications and helped hundreds of families. Now that's all gone because you couldn't tolerate the complexity of real-world compromise. I hope you can live with what you've destroyed. Mackenzie." I read it twice, then handed it to Eric. "She still doesn't get it." "No," he said sadly. "She doesn't. She never will. Mackenzie genuinely believes she was doing more good than harm, that the end justified the means. She can't see that helping people while stealing from them isn't help at all. It's exploitation." Molly tugged on my sleeve. "Grandma, is Mommy a bad person?" It was the question she'd been circling for 3 months, approaching it from different angles, trying to reconcile the mother she'd known with the criminal in the news. I knelt down to her level, taking her small hands in mine. Your mother made bad choices, sweetheart. Very bad choices that hurt people. But that doesn't mean you're bad, or that you can't remember the good moments you had with her. People are complicated. Sometimes someone can do kind things and cruel things at the same time. Will she go to prison for a long time? I looked at Eric, who nodded. Yes, honey, she will. The judge will decide exactly how long, but it will be years. And that's because actions have consequences. When we hurt people, especially when we hurt them on purpose, we have to face what we've done. Molly was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she said something that broke my heart and healed it simultaneously. I'm glad you stopped her, Grandma. Even though she's my mom. Because that little girl Lily needed help, and Mommy wasn't going to give it to her. That's not right. No, sweetheart. It's not right. After lunch, while Molly played in the barn with the chickens, Eric and I sat at the kitchen table with coffee, talking about the future. I'm selling the house, he said. Too many memories, and honestly, I can't afford it anyway. Mackenzie's legal fees are wiping out most of our assets, and her victims have filed civil suits. I'll be lucky to walk away with anything. You can come here, I offered. The farm has plenty of room. You and Molly could take the upstairs, make it your own. He smiled, but shook his head. That's generous, Mom, but Molly and I need to build something new. I found a small house in town near her school. It's a fixer-upper, but that's good. We'll work on it together, make it ours. He paused. I need you to know something. I've been in therapy, processing everything, and I've realized that I ignored warning signs about Mackenzie for years. The way she talked about people, the casual cruelty dressed up as pragmatism. I told myself it was just her being ambitious, driven. But deep down, I knew something was off. You loved her, I said gently. Love makes us blind sometimes. Maybe. Or maybe I was complicit in a different way. Not in her crimes, but in the culture that made them possible. The idea that success matters more than integrity, that powerful people operate by different rules. He met my eyes. You taught me better than that. Dad taught me better. But somewhere along the way, I forgot. And now you're remembering. Now, I'm remembering. He reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Thank you, Mom, for being brave enough to do what I should have done. For protecting Molly and me, even from ourselves. That's what mothers do, I said. And grandmothers. We protect our families, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That evening, after Eric and Molly left, I received a call from Denzel. He was still in Greenfield, working on a longer investigative piece about municipal corruption for a national magazine. His reporting had been nominated for an award, bringing him recognition and job offers from major publications. I talked to Rosa today, he said. She wanted me to tell you that Lily's going to ring the bell next week. The bell, the ceremonial bell that pediatric cancer wards install, which patients ring when they complete their treatment. The sound of survival, of hope fulfilled, of families staying intact. That's wonderful, I said, my voice thick with emotion. There's something else. The new relief fund wants to name their emergency medical assistance program after you. The Aisha Montgomery Emergency Fund. They said you're the reason it exists. No, I said firmly. If they're going to name it after anyone, name it after Rosa. She's the one who risked everything to expose Mackenzie. She's the one who fought for her daughter when the system failed her. I suggested that. Rosa said absolutely not. She said this is your victory, your legacy. It's not about victory, I said. It's about making sure no other family has to go through what she did. That's the only legacy that matters. After we hung up, I walked out onto the porch, wrapping a shawl around my shoulders against the December cold. The farm spread out before me, quiet and peaceful under the stars. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called, hunting in the darkness. I thought about Mackenzie, sitting in a cell, still believing she'd been right. Still unable to see that helping people wasn't compatible with exploiting them. She'd built her empire on the suffering of others and called it charity. She'd accumulated power by trading in desperation and called it networking. And she'd believed, until the very end, that an elderly woman posed no threat. That had been her greatest miscalculation. Not because I was physically powerful or politically connected or wealthy, but because I understood something Mackenzie never had. That true strength doesn't come from having leverage over others. It comes from being willing to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves, even when it's dangerous, even when it costs you something, even when the powerful tell you to sit down and be quiet. I was 63 years old. I'd raised 2 sons, buried a husband, kept a farm running through economic hardships and personal losses. I'd learned patience from planting seeds that took years to grow. I'd learned resilience from weather that destroyed crops and forced me to start over. I'd learned that the appearance of fragility could be a weapon, and that being underestimated was sometimes an advantage. Mackenzie had seen a harmless grandmother, too old and too simple to pose a threat. She'd never seen the farmer, the strategist, the mother who'd spent decades learning when to be soft and when to be steel. Inside the house, the doll sat on the mantelpiece, its painted smile serene, its secrets told. That doll had been Rosa's desperate gamble, her last chance to save her daughter. She'd chosen me to receive it, trusting that Molly's grandmother would have the courage to act. She'd been right. The door opened behind me, and I turned to see Eric standing there, Molly asleep in his arms. "She fell asleep on the drive," he said. "Mind if we stay here tonight? The house feels too empty." "Of course," I said. "You're always welcome here." As we went inside, Eric carrying his daughter to the guest room, I took one last look at the winter sky. Spring would come. The fields would wake. Seeds planted in darkness would push toward light. And families would heal, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. Mackenzie had tried to build power through manipulation and fear. But real power, lasting power, came from something entirely different. From integrity, from courage, from the fierce protective love that mothers and grandmothers have for their families and for all the families they'll never meet. I'd learned over 63 years that age isn't weakness. It's accumulated wisdom, hard-won knowledge, and the kind of patient, strategic thinking that comes only from living through storms and learning how to weather them. The young see the surface and think they understand everything. The old see beneath, remember patterns, and know how to wait for the right moment to act. Mackenzie had gambled that I wouldn't fight back. She'd lost that gamble. And because she'd lost, Lily Terry would ring a bell next week. Rosa would rebuild her life. Eric and Molly would find their way forward. And dozens of other families would get the help they needed from a fund built on transparency instead of corruption. One woman's greed had hurt so many people, but one grandmother's courage had stopped her. The farmhouse settled into its nighttime rhythms, creaking and sighing like an old friend. Upstairs, my son and granddaughter slept safely. Across town, Rosa sat by her daughter's hospital bed, watching her breathe, hoping and believing. And I stood in my kitchen, looking at a porcelain doll, thinking about the strange paths that lead us to our defining moments. I'd thought my moment had passed, that my purpose was simply to live quietly and tend my farm. I'd been wrong. Sometimes our greatest work comes late in life, when we've finally accumulated enough wisdom to know how to use it. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one nobody sees coming. And sometimes justice arrives not through the powerful, but through the patient, the persistent, and the people who refuse to look away when others suffer. I was a 63-year-old grandmother. I'd taken down a criminal empire with intelligence, strategy, and an unshakable belief in doing what was right. And if I had to do it again, I would. Without hesitation, without regret. Because that's what grandmothers do. We protect, we endure, and we win. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.